Yempi
Yeah?
is a better version of Chronicle. So Chronicle, if you think last year,
Show me the trophies they've lifted.
Listen, no, I don't have any. But I go with the sample size. Listen.
I actually think that Scream is overrated.
his Jet compared to his Chamber is nowhere near the same.
12,000 fans.
Right. Well, but it's France, though.
There has been changes. And what is more important is there's no important change than actually the big winners of champions revamping their roster. And this has been done simply as Loud have announced one or the other new addition in this case, after they obviously saw Pancata as well as Sassy leave to Sentinels. It is Conazin as well as Tuzzy joining alongside Fraud here. And this, to me, Frost looks like, considering the Brazilian scene, let's see, one team that definitely downgraded, considering they lost definitely two of their strongest players, but definitely not a team that is down and out.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate what happened. It was pretty much all financial, too. It was, Sassy especially and Sadak were both promised raises post champions. They didn't, I guess, get what they wanted. They both wanted to leave. One of them actually left. So I didn't know Pancada was even on the block until like the move happened, which I thought was really interesting. But I knew right away about the Sadak and Sassy rumor. So quite unfortunate for them that you break up the ban after winning a world title, going into a partnership program that they definitely wanted to be the favorites in. But
this is
just how it goes.
Yeah, this is rough. When Tom Biz had reached out to me 2 weeks ago and he's like, hey, what are your main takeaways? Give me your top 5 players from Champions. Sassy and Pancata were in the top 5.
Right.
So to have 2 players on the team that wins in the top 5 is kind of even unheard of, but then lose those 2 players to this now burgeoning team in the NA scene. Obviously, like, Sentinels kind of became a meme towards the tail end for NA, but I feel like Loud really took a big hit here. I don't think that the players they got are the worst. I think they actually found some decent replacements, but I don't think you should expect the same level of success that we saw from them last year, at least not right away. And I'm also concerned, like, no disrespect to Fraud. I am well aware of what Fraud has done. Obviously, I come from the Counter-Strike scene. I am old as shit. I was around to watch him as a player. I don't know how he's going to effectively coach a fully South American team. I had a conversation with Fallen about this many years ago, and he said coaches in esports aren't like the same as they are in sports. In sports, you grow up being told that the coach is the person you respect the most, right? So you start playing football, you play from the time you're like 5 or 6 years old until you're an adult man. At that point, you're 6'5", 280 pounds, and the dude who's 5'8" and 300 pounds and overweight is the dude you listen to, even though you could easily just pummel him into the pavement. You don't have that in esports. A lot of teams and players don't get a coach until they reach the top level. And the only way you establish respect for that player is by really respecting where they come from and the experience that they bring to the table doing the job that they do. So I don't know if they're going to have that same level of respect as someone maybe from North America would, given that his career obviously took place in North America and CSGO. And also the fact that some of these players are young. They're not even going to know what he did in Counter-Strike. It's just, obviously there's language barrier stuff too that's a little concerning. I don't know how this is all going to shape up for Loud. I am a little bit concerned that the champions are going to quickly be one of the bottom teams, if I'm being honest.
It feels a bit like it. It's going to be interesting because I was trying to reach out to him just a bit before the show, right? It unfortunately didn't come to an end. About the quick 2 additions, about mentioning that, I mean, what looks positive to me personally is at least that Konzin is like looking quite proper and quite solid, considering from only a stats perspective, right? This is the thing that mostly judged, because to be very frank with you, I didn't look that much in South America. I don't want to lie to you. And him taking the initiator role is an upside to it. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I don't know what to make of this. I'll be honest with that. I don't know really what to make of that.
So the interesting thing is, Fraud came and helped him with pistols, which I think is really interesting because like that's the easiest thing to fix, and sure me and Nitro could have really good stories about that from our time together. So, I don't know how going from helping a team with pistols and now going to like game planning and I mean, doing all the things that it takes and requires. So Boq eloquently talked about his past as a player, but like playing and coaching are entirely different.
Yup.
I'd argue not a single player. I think Nick might actually be the only one that of all of, let's say, the former players I had at 100 Thieves, none of them are going to be good coaches. Nick might be a good coach.
Right.
Whatever he's done. None of the rest have the attention to detail, the personality. Like I mean, I can continue to go on about like the. I think there's like a very big misunderstanding of what coaches are supposed to be in gaming and esports. And I think a lot of that is because normally gamers aren't athletes, so they haven't really played organized sports before, so they don't kind of know how these things work. In Valorant, especially more than any other scene I've ever been a part of, friendships equal credentials for coaching, which I think is so strange.
Yeah.
So I would more go towards that's the path this was in. If you're trying to win in this league, you don't go with a coach that never really had any success, and also, let's not forget, hadn't even been a coach for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. The good part
Let's
is,
be honest, right?
Yeah. The good part is we in roughly 1 hour we can sit by the fireplace and discuss this for hours. Right. This is the section where later on we're gonna have Mini, but stepping forward from it overall, I think we pretty much gave the sentiment that it is like a bit. We don't really know what to expect into the downgrade kind of perspective. And this brings us to a team that is upgrading, and this in the most literal sense possible, as EG has been picking up not only amazing players that we're going to see with the likes of Ethan and obviously a BCJ that everyone was absolutely astonished with last year, or more likely, let's say this year. It's not only that has been cooking up in the kitchen of Evil Geniuses. No, it goes a little further than that, because let's put it this way, similar to what they do in CS, they have decided to be like, okay, you know what? We're actually deciding to not only pick up the star players, you know what? We're making an open application process to this, Hector. And it's odd because it feels like one of the first teams that actually says, you know what? We want 10 players actively.
It's sort of a genius way, I guess, around the non-academy rule.
Yeah.
With the exception that you're going to be paying a premium in salaries for an academy division.
Right.
Which is par for the course for most of these teams anyway. They don't really understand how to be fiscally responsible in the first place, a la some salaries that exist right now, or So I would say that EG is probably doing something kind of smart by stashing talent and players in case the season doesn't start the way they want or things don't work out the way they plan. They don't have to worry about really expensive buyouts or people or having to integrate outsiders into a new system. You can almost develop, your backups to be ready to be slotted in. So I think I actually am one of the people that don't make fun of them for that, outside of the premium stuff, because cost-wise, it just, we don't even need to get into that. But that's about the only issue I have with it. Everything else I think is fine. I think the roster, I feel like the roster's okay. I think Jaw Gemo is probably going to be, again, the best player on this whole thing. Don't really have faith with some of the integrations. And I know BCJ, and Exet had a really good run. I don't necessarily think he's going to change this team, even if he gets implemented into the starting position, because this roster has a lot of problems. But overall, though, I don't think this is, in my opinion, towards the bottom part of the, NA partnership program. Some people might. I actually think, South America doesn't look very hot at the moment. So
I'd be inclined to agree with that. I think that EG actually, they're coming out in a decent position. I think one of my concerns is you just signed Ethan and BCJ, who both, well, at least Ethan towards the tail end was doing a lot of the same roles that BCJ is doing, and Com also has that same role. So you now have 3 initiators. Who gets the start? And then how do you practice with what is currently a 7-player roster? How do you determine who gets slotted in at what point? How many days of reps do they get? How often does that person ride the bench? Are they even technically a bench player? Because they're not a bench player. They're not inactive. They're technically active, just waiting for an opportunity to play. Will we see them actively cycle in and out? Will we see 1 week it's BCJ, next week it's Ethan. Will we see? I don't even know if they're going to allow this, but like, hey, map 1 it's BCJ, map 2 it's Calm. I really don't know what the long-term plan and strategy is. EG, to me, I mean, it is kind of funny that they do this in CS and now they're doing it in Valorant too, where they're just stockpiling talent. Part of me is like, is this a long-term economics play where if we bring this talent in now and somebody else is struggling, they're going to need that player and then we can sell them to them and get the buyout money? I don't know.
I would doubt that this
Yeah.
organization even has the pedigree to do that.
Yeah, that would be a little odd.
But that would be, like I said, right? That would be a very smart move to sort of like, instead of having to pay an expensive buyout because you need to fix what's going on, you already have your second, third, fourth choice before you even have to go that route. I think long term, you're correct. That's a brilliant move. I think it was just a happy accident because to try to be as respectful as possible, one of these moves was made of nepotism, and I'm sure you can imagine which one. Given the current abilities that player had showed the last, I would say, 18 months, I'm not necessarily sure you're excited to have him on your starting roster. But because of history, you know,
listen,
they make the move.
I have good news for you. I know how we can save this team. There's an open application process, and I know who we're going to sign up.
It's also interesting.
We're gonna save it. And you know what? Thank you very much for making this possible, Evil Geniuses. And we're signing up Van Silly, the man himself, the absolute unit that he is going to most definitely participate in the process. And I hope he actually gets a little bit further in the application process, as we got Mr. Respect and Love right there being signed up. Most importantly, very important to me personally, is obviously his rank, because he's usually very honest. Van Silly's a quiet, honest guy, because Hot Dog and Soup is the kind of guy who would you expect to be honest. Gold and below. Obviously has no actual VLR. This is all made up, but current rank is gold and below. Obviously his previous rank has not been many higher. His high is a chief rank. He's just the type of guy who tries and be like, you know what, you should pick me because for the vibe, I guess. That sounds like a Van Silly thing to do. I'm cool and I'm chill and everything, but you know what, we're going to sign him up and we're going to click on the next button any second soon. So he's obviously contacted right now with Bala, so it's going to be like a $7 million buyout for sure, something along those lines. We talked about inflated salaries. I guess you know, he's going to be the type of guy to get that actually.
Got him.
Make sure to subscribe to Valoranting because they ask some pretty good questions, so you don't want to miss out on the answers.
I'm here to sell you North American rosters. I'm here to sell you permanently. Like, you're not satisfied about Loud. You're not satisfied about EG. Okay, I got another offer for you. I got another offer that is ready to be presented. And it's called something that I actually, on paper, from all we present today, find the most promising. And that is NRG. Right? It has started a bit more than a week ago where we saw all those announcements. Obviously, Chet starting to pull the strings and bring in one great player after another. And from that point on, we saw NRG even go further and pick up two very interesting, you know, introductions. One of them actually swapping continents in the forms of Ardiis, which definitely seems like it's a radical, really, really radical, but could be strategically a good move, as well as picking up some, which then was for me a little bit, you know, not necessarily surprising in many ways. Not Sam in this case, pardon, Victor. And it seems like we're back to the old OpTic days. It feels a bit like it's OpTic 2.0 to a certain extent.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Let's not forget they wanted to replace Ye January of last year, and by some fluke and other GMs trolling, the move didn't end up happening, and everyone regretted it because then Ye went on a run, and everybody, you know, the perception is that Ye's the best player in the world now, right? So I will say that not having a true op, yeah, you can say Sam. Early on in this game, I thought Sam was going to be really good on the op. That did not show itself to be true. Lately, he's been playing like KO more than anything. So they're going to need an opper. And if they think they're going to now turn Sam from a guy that let go of the op to now a guy that is going to main the op, and now he's going to be going into a partnership program and is going to out-duel some of the top guys in North America, I think that's interesting. But I'm very curious how, you know, this is what they wanted last January. I'm very curious how this works out now without Ye.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I do like the Ardiis pickup. I am interested, like, really, like you said, Sam is the big question mark for me. I've watched his career from the very beginning. like casted his very first lands in CS. And I like him as a player, but I am trying to understand how he fits in with the rest of this roster. Because if you look at the rest of this roster, you have an incredible amount of experience. You've got FNS, you've got Crashies, you've got Victor, the trio coming in from OpTic, a team who's played on international stages. You've got Ardiis, who's also done the same thing. And then there's Sam. Young kid, really good, but definitely unrefined. I think there's a massive task for Chet here to try to turn him into the player they need him to be. Yeah. And I don't even know who that is, because at times his role overlap has been direct with Victor. We've seen him play a lot of the same duelist responsibilities that Victor's played. Like, you're talking, okay, is he going to go back to playing Jet? Are we going to see him play the up role? I don't know. Question mark. Big question mark. And I don't know who like concedes there. Like, Sam's got tenure with the org, but Victor has tenure with the rest of the team and the coach. So who ends up making that call? And is it going to be awkward? And is this going to be something that we end up seeing falling apart? And Sam, if you're watching, you know I love you, buddy. But seriously, I'm really confused and I'm worried. I don't know how this is going to work.
He's not going to opt though. They're going to make Ardiis do it because Ardiis is on Chamber. But the thing about that is, like, I think Ardiis is a really good player, and trust me, this is less about Ardiis. This is more about just understanding sort of like things and how they work. Okay, so was Ardiis considered one of the best oppers in Europe, even at any point? Most people wouldn't really think of it. They would look at him and Xiao and Sugetsu as like very strong players. But no one went, you know who's one of the best oppers in the world? Ardiis. Why? Because he was really just on Chamber. Now, sure, you can, I guess, make a justification that, like, well, technically all the oppers were on Chamber. Okay, yeah. But his Jet compared to his Chamber is nowhere near the same. Ye's Jet and Chamber were basically identical. The difference was Chamber's broken, and obviously, like, you know, it created like another storm because he can rotate faster, which was a big thing that you had to deal with. But I guess, like, it's less about Ardiis. It's more like, if you think that Ardiis is going to be better than Ye, and if your assumption is then that Sam is going to be better than Jimmy, or if you're going to swap FNS to Smokes, I'm just going to keep saying good luck. Because as much as I respect Ardiis, I watched a lot of EU because of my relationships with some players and other teams.
Mm-hmm.
I believe FPX got the better end of the deal getting CNED at the op. Again, no disrespect to Ardiis, but it just is what it is. So to think that if he's not better than CNED, are we now just going to assume he's better than Ye? And if that's the case, I got a bridge to sell some of you.
Yeah, okay, let me put it differently. I'll put it differently for the you two. We're starting with you, Boq. Would you personally say, right, we're going in two directions, only two directions possible. Would you say that NRG is right now better off overall, or is like the team something where you'd say they're going to be at the top end of the spectrum, or would you say like they might just crumble, and even though the players are looking good on paper, it's not sold. You're not buying it yet.
NRG is better off than the old NRG. Yes. I don't think they're better off than the old OpTic. I think that they are good. I'm not going to say they're bad. I think there's a lot of question marks that leaves us wondering how things are going to work out, but I don't think they compare to the team they were.
Right. And I'm sure that team had problems, and I'm sure personalities
clashed
and all that stuff. However, that team worked, and it was very complimentary, despite, I guess, some of the frustrations that they may have had with each other. I don't think this one is as good a fit in server. It might be better out of server, which might be what they wanted, but I'm not afraid of game playing against them. So, like, that's I guess where I go with this. So I think me and Boq we feel the same way about this.
Yeah, I mean, on a personality level, Sam's a really likable person. So I'd say that team composition wise, like outside of the server, they're going to get along great. But yeah, I agree with you that there's definitely a lot of inadequacies, and I'm not sure how that's going to shape up for them.
Right, and you know, moving forward, this is like the last pillar that we're right now selling before we're going to EMEA, is obviously something that is just most likely, you know, related to a bit of an NA org and also the South Korean org. Is Karp joining? Right, we had this conversation 1 or 2 weeks ago. Oh, hey, what does that sound about? What is that?
I'm not this whole T1 thing to me is really weird.
Elaborate.
I actually think that this T1 roster is kind of becoming a meme. If you look at who owns T1, it's Comcast Spectacor. Comcast Spectacor also owns Philadelphia Fusion, where Carpe used to play. So is it really a surprise that Carpe ends up on this team? Absolutely not. He probably just went into someone's office and said, I want to play Valorant now. And they're like, sounds good. Here you go. This team has 3 out of 5 players are former Overwatch players. That's not a coincidence. Now, I'm not knocking on former Overwatch players, but I'm just pointing out a fact. 3 out of 5 come from Overwatch.
Yeah.
One player, you got banned, who is like maybe now looking at this roster going like, what the hell did I do? And then you have a ranked player in Byomjun. He has no competitive experience whatsoever. So I'm a little confused, and I've heard from teams that have played against them, it is a mess. Ironically, the best player is actually Munchkin, who is one of the other players who came from Overwatch, does have some experience playing in Valorant, but I've heard pretty bad things about this T1 roster, and I don't think this Carpe signing is the worst. Obviously, like, there's another question mark in the air, like, is Carpe going to switch over well, or is he going to be like so many other Overwatch players that his skill level just didn't transition? He was an incredible Overwatch player, but that doesn't make you an incredible Valorant player. I just really kind of wonder what's going on over on the T1 camp.
But why do you wonder? Think of them since the inception of this game.
Yeah,
Think of all the leadership decisions, roster decisions. I can go on and on. I'm not even going to get into it. This is just par for the course. APAC is the toughest region, I think, overall. I know I've gotten some pushback. I'm actually curious what you think about that. So, in my opinion, 2 of the best 3 teams in the world last year came out of APAC. I don't think that can be disputed. DRX and PaperX. Throughout the whole year, we're basically top 3. OpTic was the 3rd team, right? Or, I mean, they could have been number 1, but I'm just saying, like, in no order, it was OpTic plus PRX and DRX, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
So I think that entire region is filled with killers that no one on this side of the planet even pays attention to or are even aware of.
Right.
Therefore, I think they don't realize that this T1 roster is going to have a really tough job ahead of it, because Ban, I really like, I believe he came out of the Knights program and all that stuff. That's cool. He's, not a terrible player. But if he's going up against Jing, Jesse Vash, like, man, he just, to not make it in T1 in North America, but now you're going to a region like that, I mean, that is tough. Tough. So I wish him the best. I think Zeta's incredible. I think for Saya player, it was good for him to go back. I mean, I think he did great here, and I think he would have continued to do great here. But if he wanted to go back home, more power to him, right? Like, no, I mean, he was leaving a good situation with the guard, but, I definitely think the pieces could work. Good luck to the coaching staff. Because at the end of the day, they're going to have to do the job that most people don't think is possible with a roster like that.
Right.
And they have a lot of players that also similarly play the same positions, now having to adjust.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough.
Okay. Let me summarize that. Real quick, Frost. You personally are just basically, because we have to really get in quick words. You're not sold on the thing, basically, because all the points, it sound like even that is just a bit more. It is the most disappointed I've ever heard you, basically.
I mean, but I'm not surprised about this.
No, but not saying that.
Yeah. So no, I am not enthralled with the roster. I wish the coaching staff the best. I hope Autumn does well.
Yeah.
However, good luck in that region, because that region is filled with killers.
It feels like it.
There's no weak matchups in that region. In NA and in EU, I can name weak rosters in this partnership program.
Which is why it's interesting, too, because I feel like there are teams they probably could have targeted. Like players they could have targeted from other teams, like Damwon. Like, they could have picked up some of the talent from the other established teams
as well. Yeah.
Like, I don't know why they decided to sign they signed a legitimate ranked player. Like, I'm pretty sure Byomjun is a Radiant player.
What has T1 done in Valorant? That's all I'm gonna say.
No, I know, you're right.
Sorry,
so
Zach.
It is just
all good.
What have they done? They have not told us that they are going to do anything different. This is just a common motif for them. Good luck with this roster. I'll see you in the rebuild next season.
Good. You know what? This is where we have like basically our halftime show, which is basically a live show in form of GameChangers, which is going on, right? And if you're not following it, and that's no big deal, right? You know, for some it's early, for some it's late. What quickly happened is what easily I've predicted on Twitter because it was the easiest, points you could get. Cloud9 obviously won 2-0. Same happened with G2 Goes, and I think that is no big surprise, to be very frank. There we see the bracket again. What obviously is then kind of interesting, because what is going on right now live, I love this production, is Cloud9 White versus G2 Goes. And I can just tell you from my EU perspective, I'm sure you can tell a lot more about NA, is that this G2 Goes roster, for me, it felt like they didn't fully try. And now you have, in my eyes, in the CSGO era, in the more recent CSGO era, the best female team in its core, let's put it that way, with a good chunk of LAN experience playing on LAN like beasts. I mean, honestly, for me, this is a done deal in the European side of things.
Maybe on the European side of things, but they're still not better than Cloud9, as good as they are. And Mary actually is your best player.
And look, your camera broke for that statement too. That's what you get.
So Mary, to me, it's not Juliano who's the best player. It's Mary, and Mary's new. So it's not even like the old CS crew that is like carrying. It's actually Mary. Well, in film, or on film rather, sorry, I think she is the cleanest of all of them. She makes the least amount of mistakes. So I think she's really good. But, going up against Bob and Mel, I mean, again, good luck.
Yeah, this is actually this is the match that I think a lot of people have been waiting for, because it is the two best teams, sort of undisputed two best teams in GameChangers.
Yeah, for sure.
And Cloud9 has kind of had an easy path. I don't feel like they've met as much resistance. I think that's one thing that's playing towards G2's favor, is the fact that there has maybe been a little bit stronger of a scene developing in Europe versus North America. Mm-hmm. But I also think that Cloud9 White is really strong. I'm not sure if I can really give either team the definitive victory here. Like, I can't predict that either one's going to win this. I can say that it will just be a really good game. I think this will be potential. This is like, I think this is the final. I think we see these two teams play again, regardress of who wins. Either
I don't
team's going to run through
disagree
the
with
lower
that.
bracket and play in the final again. So
I
it
don't
doesn't
disagree
make a
with that.
difference.
All right. So Zech,
yeah,
would you at least hear an argument that says,
Cloud9
has the better players? Mel and Bob are undisputed to me as 1 and 2 over. Like, if you take all the 10 players, right, and you put them in a fantasy draft,
got it.
1 and 2 will be Mel number 1, Bob number 2, in my opinion, no matter what. But if you want to go roster, maybe G2 has a better overall roster.
Yeah. I signed that. I absolutely signed that. 100%.
Right. So then that is where we look at it, because I think Mary is actually good. Like,
agreed.
Really good. I just don't think she's Mel.
Right.
And then I think number 2, when you compare Giuliano and Bob, I actually think Bob mechanically is just much better.
I see what you mean. For me, it's like this. This is the first LAN for many. And I think this is a factor that is, you cannot measure what LAN experience actually is. You cannot particularly quantify it.
True.
You cannot be like, they're going to win because they have played so million LANs. No, at the end of the day, right? If there's a better team, there's a better team. At the same time, it feels like it is a factor that plays into this, and that could, and I would not say will, but it could have exactly that impact. Besides the fact of the synergy that G2 goes and has for years. So I'm with you. It's not like, I'm just going to sit here ballsy and be like, you know what, G2 goes is going to win that. We can all fly home, book your first class tickets. No, it's going to be insanely tight fight, even over the course of this entire tournament, not only in this, early on game. It just feels to me that what has been played by G2 goes in so far is looking like they have not even shown what they needed to do. Because as good as GuildX were in the past, and they continuously, evolved, I personally believe, like, they didn't have this big challenge yet of being like, you know what, guys, we really, really, really need to work hard for this. And they all constantly work hard, but this is like the actual challenge where they'd be like, this is easy. Or this is like, we crumble because there's actual opposition.
Yeah, see, I think GuildX are talented, but I never really thought they were like,
they're
really,
good.
really strong, to be honest. Yeah. What I will say, though, is this. So why I feel so confident in saying that is because, like, in LANs, at least from my experience over, like, obviously multiple titles, right?
Right.
Is that if you think about what happened with us, right, on 100 Thieves with Hiko,
Yeah.
right? Hiko was so valuable in Berlin because of things that like don't show up on stat sheets. What you guys remember are all the clutches, right? What you guys don't think about much are all the times he saved our ass when he's in a really bad position and he gets more than he should in that area, right?
Yeah.
How can you do that? Chronicle is another player that does very similar stuff, right? You do that because the truth is you're just really talented. This is where people like Art, Simple, this is when they just start changing the math, right? So if we're arguing who has better chances to win on LAN, and the biggest argument is G2 have more LAN experience and they have all the CS experience and all that stuff. I definitely hear that argument and don't want to understate it.
Yeah.
But at the top level, now I'm not talking about at all levels, right? Because the averages will play more, right? Like the law of large numbers will dictate that over the course of time, the better teams will win.
Yeah.
That is true. What I'm saying is at the top, when you're at the 1% and you're playing, you know, those teams, players like Hiko, who some people trash and make fun of and all that stuff, but that guy steals rounds and clutches pretty much everything. They change series. And this is basically what I'm saying when I believe Cloud9 are going to win this.
Okay.
And I don't think it's going to be like close, actually.
You know,
this series or game might be close and all that stuff, but by the end of it, I think everybody will realize they're that good. And it's only because those two players, similar to the Hiko, Chronicle, you know, Simple, Art example, they are so good individually that more often than not, they're going to steal from that team because they're just that good. Because teamwork, believe it or not, like when you're that good, like Loud and OpTic at Champions Finals, that wasn't an anti-strat fest. At that point, you already know what everyone does. You played them so many times. At that point, it was really just skill versus skill, and you saw how close everything was. So it came down to like individuality more. It sounds so weird for people to hear that.
No,
but it's like at that level, I think it's less, in my opinion, about experience. It's actually really more about talent.
Right. Okay, you know what? This is where I would like to talk 3 hours with you what talent is, because I don't believe in the idea of talent. But I think, you know...
you're one of those hard work guys only, huh?
No. I explained to you differently another time. But I think the Valoranting guys are going to kick us out at one point. So we closed this book called North America and all the other regions that don't matter and go to Europe. And you know what? This is where I'm starting with something where I definitely have a thesis that it matters so much. And we're starting with Vitality. And I'm not even going to be like, oh, you know what? This is a super exciting roster. This is super interesting. Of course it is interesting. Don't get me wrong. Because what Salah did is basically, you know what? Okay, who actually was on the roster of OG London United that I actually made quite decent during LCQ? Yeah, you know what? I'm going to pick Malsey. I'm going to pick Destry. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Pick Twistin from Big because he's a quite good, he's a quite good duelist, and also learned how to properly play under one of the best IGLs in the world. Shout out Goppy. I will always mention his name. But the most interesting part to me, and this is where I definitely want to hear you argue, and I had this argument already a week ago, is like the most important part and the most important thing is that in my eyes, this team has the best coaching staff. Period. They have Salah, they have Gorilla, they have Strong. Period. This is the best coaching staff you can get in this entire universe. And you know, there could be a few better additions, and sure, maybe there's some North American names that I cannot think of from you perspective. But honestly, Boq, for me, this is like, everyone is sleeping a bit on Vitality. I think everyone's sleeping on Vitality.
I know the manager of Vitality, so I have a lot of faith in Rob as a person because I just have known him for many years, and I like what he's building. I do like the way that, you know, hey, you have a coach come in and two players from the team that were probably two of the more promising players end up joining the roster, so you have some of that core coming together. You pick up Twistin, who, in my mind, Twistin has a high ceiling, but he also has a really low-ass floor. We saw a lot of that. Dude is super inconsistent. He needs a coach and an in-game leader that can really help kind of refine that. I feel like you would see him like pop off, and then the next game he would be literally bottom fragging by like 10, 15 kills, closest person. So that's an inconsistency thing that can occur if your role is like to be the star player, the duelist. You have Bone Cold, who's got a ton of experience coming in from that Ascend roster before things went south there. I do like the core of this roster. I don't know if I can agree about the head coach. I don't know if they necessarily have the strongest coaching staff, because again, like, you would have to point to accolades for those coaches. And can you point to those accolades for me?
Yeah, I personally believe. Okay, this is a
no. I mean trophies.
Yeah.
Show me the trophies they've lifted.
Listen, I don't have any, but I go with the sample size. Listen, but this is like where we still have to take a look at progress. And there has been the OG London United example over EMEA LCQ was enough for me, and listening to Salah was enough for me to be like, I have high hopes. Am I going to put all my money on them? No. Do I have high hopes? Absolutely.
So I think you're the guy that has all the as seen on TV stuff in your apartment, because you're easily sold. You had one conversation with the coach and you're like, you're the best coach I've ever heard.
Hey, no. Hold up. I think it was a very visible change that applied there to OG London United. And I think that Strong also seems to be the kind of strategical mind such a team can really benefit, especially hand in hand with Gorilla. But obviously I can be wrong.
I don't know these people, so I haven't. I don't. I was surprised to hear that you thought that was the best coaching staff, but you might be right. I actually don't know. I don't know them at all, and I've never talked to them, so I don't. And I've never really played against them, so I don't even understand if their tactics are good or like if it's too easy to recognize patterns, right? So I don't have that intel. What I will say is this: OG London was really only good at one thing last year. Period. They were the best attacking side Ascent team in the world. You look at all the percentages. They had by far had the best, but in every other conceivable metric, they weren't even in the top 8 on any other map.
Which time period? Which time period?
This was like, I'd say from like June to like September, October. Right. They were like by far one of the best Ascent teams. But that's about it. So I am a little weary because if the coaching staff is so great, they should have been better on more maps.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So I will just say that is slight critique, but again, that it also comes down to personnel and players, and I know this better than anyone. So like, it might not be their fault. What I will say though is, I think the way this roster is constructed is very interesting. I don't think Bone Cold. So no disrespect to Ascend, but it was a miracle run that they had, right? So I don't think that was a great pickup. I think Sender is pretty solid. But to me, coming into this season, if you would, if I'm a betting man, I'm not sure they do better than like 4 wins. Because who are they beating? Like, now that could be I don't really know Mulsey and Destrine at all. So disclaimer. Twiston never jumped off at the page to me anyway. So I'm not really sure.
Fair. You know what? Maybe I'm believing too much in that sense. And you know what? I just can see.
But you might be right, though. That's the thing is like, we don't know. I don't understand. I don't know the coaching staff well enough. Your argument was not this team is better constructed. Your argument was they have the best coaching staff. This team can make a run. So they could be a dark horse. I can't dispute that claim.
I'm with it because what you're coming off statistically is not only LCQ but stage 2. In stage 2 they were bad. Signing that 100%. LCQ they showed definite improvement. So you know what? I have hopes, I have dreams, and I have the opportunity to see that. But you know what? There's a total different story, and this is where I'm going to be a little bit upset because we're taking a look at Karmine Corp, and I have this theory. So Karmine Corp has a check, and you know what? Like you know those Twitter posts of like you have 10 points and you can create your favorite team, and then you have like 5 points, you have this player, 4 points, you have this player, and it feel like they bought basically. There has been Scream as a 4-point player, Nivera as a 3-point player, and suddenly I have 3 points left. Okay, how do I invest those 3 points?
Right.
This is how I feel. Unfortunately, I feel about Karmine Corp without saying that they're not that looking good. I think they are definitely. In my eyes, the Turkish teams, except they are just pulling magic, a bottom end team about next year, 100%.
I mean, not only am I kind of like, where the hell did this team even come from? Because like Karmine Corp, just when that list was on the Valorant Partnership Program list, I was like, who?
Fair play.
So much so that I went to their website and the About section doesn't work. The About section is grayed out and it has a red circle with a line through it. you can't actually find out the story of this org. I kind of am like you. It's like it is basically the Scream and his brother, and then everyone else. I do think XMS has potential as a player.
Sure.
I remember during his time in CS, I thought that XMS had like this ceiling that was never really fully explored. But I am kind of looking at the rest of this roster just going, those are some of the players I've ever seen. It does feel like they're leaning heavily on the brothers to try to kind of climb them out of the whatever hole this team is going to find themselves in, which is probably going to be the bottom of EMEA, if I'm honest.
Yeah, agreed.
So XMS, so 10 Star, so he was on 10 Star. 10 Star was like, to me, early on, me and Nitro, when Fracture came out, this is obviously before I got fired and like, you know, all that shit happened. Me and Nitro were looking at 10 Star because we were like playing them in scrims, and like 10 Star surprisingly was like giving us a hard time in Berlin.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of crazy how like they were just, you know. So then, you know, going into Fracture when it was released, they just looked like they had the map figured out really early. So I think XMS to me was always interesting because it always looked like, you know, like that team was really good, and he was always like the guy that kind of like stood out. So I'm interested in to see how that works. But I will say, I think they're trolling. They left Liquid. Liquid as a roster should have been capable of winning a world championship. The problem was that they literally FPL'd every round. You could tell there's no understanding of sort of like trying to sort of like bait people to do things. There's no setup. There's no like, there was really very little ideology pre-round. I know this because if you go back and you look at Liquid games, you could tell they don't even communicate about ultimates. Yo, I'm one orb off, or they're one orb off, or they have ult now. And you could see how many times they like ran into like Raze ults or ran, you know, so you could tell that the communication wasn't really about like the game. It was like, yo, I'm hot. I think I'm gonna kill this guy or something. You know, I don't know. So I feel like that roster, if it stayed together and they actually cared about the details, that roster is certainly capable of winning a world title.
Yeah, but
they were amazing. I think them leaving Yempi and all the talent, I think they're gonna regret it. But they want an all French team, probably wanted to communicate in all like French, and they definitely probably got a bag, and they wanted to be bigger faces of the franchise. Maybe I don't know this for certain, obviously.
Yeah.
I like the last time I talked to Scream was like a Cologne in 2015 or something, right? So I don't have any inside info, but I think this roster, as you so eloquently put it, is capped for sure.
Yeah, so I can put it like this, because there's one interesting aspect, because you asked, you know, where's this ore coming from and everything. So the way I can put it is, they had this very interesting. I'm looking up right now for production. This is a type.
They're
of
really
ore.
from League of Legends.
Yeah, exactly. You're right.
Yeah.
But I'm going to show this right now, and I'm going to send this. I'm going to send it to Ian to show it. This org has made it possible that during a group stage game, I think it was a group stage game of the French Regional League, not VCT. French Regional League, to fill up a stadium with 12,000 fans for not only that game. I think there were multiple games running on that day. I think also League of Legends, Karmine Corp. and look at this. Those are 12,000 people in a stadium. We can even play that with sound. Just listen to it. If you can play it with sound. We cannot. Okay, either way. It's insane.
But it's France, though. So it's like super weird. Like, I don't know if you're like an F1 fan.
I am.
Like, Renault sucks, but it doesn't matter. They're still one of the most popular teams because they own that country by the balls. They're government subsidized.
Yeah.
And like, even like French and everything, French and Rocket League, right? Like KDAP is literally like a superstar, and like, you know, for all intents and purposes, is a dweeb. So it's just, you know, it just is what it is. Like that region, Japan.
Yeah.
They're rabid fan bases. I think that's why they're in the partnership program, is Riot sees this as sort of, without getting too into that stuff, I think it's really geographical. They are the team that can represent France. Scream is absolutely the guy that could represent the language.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's not French specifically.
He's Belgian, yeah.
Right. So I understand why he would do it as a player, but we're evaluating the roster, I think that roster's capped.
Yeah, fully.
I have to say this too.
Go ahead.
And this is like one of those things that people will probably clip and be like, "Oh, Boq hates." I actually think that Scream is overrated. I think he's always been like incredibly mechanically gifted, but I feel like there's a reason why his career in Counter-Strike started to taper, and it's because the gimmick only lasts so long.
Right, aim only carries you so far.
Exactly. Eventually, the rest of your game has to develop, and I'm not saying that he's at that point now in Valorant, but he could be. Like we could see that eventually. See him start to downslide as new talent comes up. Yeah. That's just as good. Eventually, like there's a divider between the two that you have to take your game to the next level.
Right. I don't want to shift gears, but what you just said has been a conversation and topic point from a lot of like, you know, former pro players and like, you know, people in my circle, especially about Ye, right? Because what most people don't realize is why Ye turned into the best player in the world, with all due respect to Ye, is Chamber. And it's because when he was on Jett, there was a very easy way to play against him, and it was using util and basically suffocating him out of his most favorite spots. Now, we at 100 Thieves didn't do that very well because we're dumb. You can say I'm dumb, but there's a lot of issues and reasons why we didn't do what we should have done, even though we knew what the fuck we had to do. And that is a conversation for a different day. However, a lot of other European teams made his life miserable, and it's because they use utility to snuff him out and then made him retake with an op. Why I'm bringing this up is because he gets on Chamber, completely changes the world, right? Why? Because Chamber doesn't have to play by those rules. He doesn't care about that stuff. He just hits one button, teleports out. It doesn't matter.
Back alive.
Anything you wanted to do with him. Scream doesn't have a character that can fundamentally bring out, like, Scream could be the best player in the world mechanically, but he's not playing Chamber, right? And because of this, he gets punished a lot more.
Okay.
So what Boq's saying is true. Like, in a vacuum, you look at Scream's talent, I understand why everybody wants him on his team.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. There are other things about this game you have to look at, and that's why Scream is so hot and cold, and why some series he destroys you, and other series you're like, bro, what's going on with Team Liquid? It's like, there's nothing going on with Team Liquid. It's just they're doing a really good job at stopping their win conditions, and now they don't have any backup plans. Unlucky.
I'll just give you this to underline exactly what you said. The man avoided to play Jett because of discomfort when Jett was broken. So this is like another agent where it is sort of broken and he just does not feel comfortable about it. But you know what? We talked about a lot about Team Liquid and we exactly go to that team. And I'll be honest with you, and I don't know what you think, because I think you Frost, had a lot of good contact with particularly the former Gambit players or mech players. For me, this Liquid roster right now, when we take a look at it, is honestly, and I honestly mean it, fairly promising. I will not say they're going to be the best team in EMEA, but I think what they've done right now is most definitely an upgrade, an absolute upgrade. For me, this team has gone in an upward trajectory. Not that they have exponentially increased their value, but definitely they have increased their value for me with the pickups they had. Nats, Redguard, and Save, for me, seems to be, it just seems perfect. It just seems like a really good addition with everything available in the market.
I'm going to let Boq talk about this because I have a really close affinity with like some of these guys. But
okay, Boq, come on.
I'm curious what you think.
Likewise as well. So when I worked for ESCA, I managed Rank S for Europe. And I know some of these guys because they were regular players in the Rank S system. So like Solkas and Safe were pretty prominent players in that scene. And it's cool now seeing them rise up, not only in Valorant. I'm seeing a lot of those names still in CS that are like now playing on international major stages. Like Diha is a big one, who was a player that got reported for cheating every single week, and now the dude's playing with Ents at major stages.
Oh, he's Zekin then. He's Zekin.
Yeah, like all of these guys, like they were nobodies when I knew them. So now seeing them rise up, like there's like that pride factor, like, oh, he's all grown up now. So I do look at this team and I think, okay, this team has some tremendous potential. I think that Yampy is incredible. I think that the skill ceiling for Yampy is through the roof. We haven't even seen it yet, because I thought that in CS, and I think that's still here in Valorant. I like this team. I think the weak link, and people are going to call me a homer for it, is the Brits. I always feel like the British scene is slightly struggling to keep up with the rest of EMEA, and I do feel like there could be potentially some language barrier problems with this roster, because you've got Russians, Brits, Finns, and Swedish players, like there's a lot of moving pieces trying to communicate in a moment. Like everyone says, like, oh, they can talk and speak English. Yeah, but in the moment,
Okay.
in a split second, are you going to make the comm as clearly as you would in your native tongue? And the answer is simply no.
Quickly clarifying something for just every single player. Safe should have no problem. He speaks excellent English and also in the moment. And the only issue I have, and I agree with you there, is Nats and Redgar have both not played in any international team ever before.
Yep.
And especially as an IGL, Redgar speaks decent English. When we talk with him, hey, the guy's chill. He can communicate. But he is not like super fluent, have been in the US or in the UK for 10 years. And this could become a problem.
It will be a problem, but yeah. But it's not going to be a big one because their game IQs are so high. Well, some of them.
True.
This is true.
I will agree with you on Soulcast. Definitely the weakest player, but that's okay. On a team of 5, someone has to be the weakest player.
Of course.
So that's okay. He's still very good. Still a tier 1 player. So perfectly fine that he's on this roster. I am so sad that M3C broke up because they didn't need to. I will say this.
Yes.
I love Nats and Redgar. Those are the homies. Like, I'm so happy that they got what they wanted and are on a team that, is going to be successful and on one of the best orgs in the world. Yampy is a better version of Chronicles than the one that we saw last year.
Say it again?
But that isn't Chronicles' fault.
Can you say that again?
Yampy is a better version of Chronicle. So Chronicle, if you think last year, right? So this is why I think their move is good. Because the way they were playing Chronicles last year was so troll. Like, if you look at, like, when they played, Guild, right? He's solo walk on attack, solo walking into Cat as Chamber with an op, like, not playing with his teammates. He's just like, trying to look for picks and he's getting killed all the place. That is not what made Chronicles special. Last year, and I actually tried to talk to Redgar, and that's about this a lot. The way that they changed roles last year, to me, made their lives supremely difficult, right? They took, a Reyna player, and he was swapping all over the place. They put Nats on Astra, I mean...
You mean this year? Because you said last year. 2022.
I meant by, like the last season, right? Okay. I'm already on this new season. Sorry, I don't mean like...
All good, gotcha.
So what's interesting to me is they have, for the style of play they wanted to play, Redgar, they have better players to fit the ideology. Yampy is a better go kill than Chronicle. Chronicle is up here. He outplays you here.
Yeah.
Yampy, no disrespect to Yampy, Yampy does not outplay you here. As a matter of fact, there's no fear here. Right? Yampy doesn't understand fear, which is why he gets killed in the most funniest ways imaginable.
True.
Right? Because there is no slowdown button with him. So for them, I think they got what they wanted. I will contend, though, that Gambit is still the best team Valorant has seen, and that includes OpTic and PRX from last year. That includes Loud. They just got into their own heads.
I agree.
And felt that they had to switch roles. So, like, putting Shade... Anyways, Shados on Sova, when you have Chronicles on your team...
Yeah.
I don't need to go any further, right? So, for what they wanted, Team Liquid is perfect. It is just sad because I still don't think this roster is as good or has a higher ceiling than the one that they previously had.
Yep.
And that is a cold, hard pill to swallow. Do I still think they're going to be top 3 in this league? Yes, I agree with you that they are, in my opinion, one of the best teams, position by position, in the league right now. And if if Cypher continues to get buffed, oh man, people are screwed. Oh my God, people are screwed.
I agree. I fully.
They're so screwed.
I couldn't agree. You know what? This is one of the best things I've heard in a while. Is that I agree. The old Mac, immaculate, most literally the best thing that could have ever happened. But I think this is promising.
Yeah.
I unfortunately didn't hear what our production. I didn't unfortunately hear what Ian said. So he has to scream it in my ear again before the next segment. Okay, thank you very much. Let's go for that because soon we're gonna have Mini on the show. Next segment is obviously nothing else than, let's say, the least interesting change, but also a very impactful change in my eyes. And that is Fnatic doing a rather, interesting one with obviously adding nobody else. Everybody knew this, right? Everybody and their grandmother knew that this is the case. And talking about the man here, Boq, you know, if you would say, okay, I'm gonna say it like this: if we go just on paper, we purely look on paper, players, Fnatic, this is difficult. I don't want to say Fnatic has the best team on paper, but I'm going to say Fnatic has the best team on paper.
I would say that Fnatic has the best number 2 team on paper in Europe.
No,
because
on paper,
I think that Na'Vi is the better team right now in the region.
I agree with that.
That Fnatic is in a really good position to try to take that crown away from Na'Vi. But I think that it's hard to fight against the Na'Vi roster. That team is stacked.
Let me rephrase it.
This is as good as you could get without being Na'Vi. In my opinion, this is probably the closest you're going to get with the available players.
Or without overhauling your roster.
Exactly, without completely undoing anything. And I don't think you want to if you're Fnatic, because like the heart and soul of this roster is Boaster, right? You want to build around him because not only does everyone like him, people who play against him, people who watch his teammates, everyone likes Boaster. I've not encountered somebody who's been like, yeah, fuck that guy. Like, no one says that. Everyone likes that guy. And then you have the other 2 players, Durka and Alpha. Like, of course they're going to stay. They had a great showing. So now they just try to round out the roster with some remaining pieces.
Yeah,
I like what they're doing. I really do. I think that they've made the best roster they possibly could with the available pieces left in EMEA. And it would have been interesting to see if they could have somehow like sniped CNED away from Na'Vi, if they could have like made that happen in some way, shape, or form, and then kind of reworked the roster just to work around the raw skill that the players all have. But this again is the best that they were going to get, and
okay.
I think I see promise in the team.
I have to rephrase something before we get to you, Hector. I want to put it your way. I think Fnatic. You remember earlier when you did the G2 goes into Cloud9 comparison with best players and best roster?
Right.
I think this is the best players team. And I think Na'Vi is the best roster team. I think Na'Vi would win against Fnatic. But this is what I mean with just go on paper. Like, for example, if we just hypothetically go by numbers and role performance.
See, I think the other way, though.
Really?
Yeah,
I agree.
Elaborate.
This team is more structured and has more team play and synergy. FPX last year, or FPX from the beginning of this game, I don't know if you know what a 1 flat is. Well, so, shit. I just opened up a can of worms. Okay, so most people think a default is 1 fills every lane. That is not true. North America is just dumb. But what's more accurate is to say 1 flat. You just have 1, flattened out on every lane. It's just way easier. That is not a terminology that Americans have used, but it is a terminology that other players in other games have used from other regions. Wink, wink, old F3, right? So what I will just say is that if you did every round FPLing it, FPX thrived in that scenario.
Yeah.
Fnatic, they could because they were good, but they really were great at, turning their defaults into fast stuff, fake stuff, transitioning off of it. Like, that's like team play. That requires synergy. FPX's gameplay was not that, right? So with the addition of CNED, who also isn't a structured guy at all. Like, when we played against him, for instance, I have all the videos and all the timeouts and everything that we did on 100 Thieves Forever. So maybe I might release this. Yeah. But the anti-CNED strat was a game plan going into it. We used all our util early in the round to find out where he was, and we knew what the formation of Ascend was based on where he was.
Right.
But that's not his pattern. That's the team's pattern around him. He just felt where he needed to go, and you just have to find him, and then you just all right, make him retake. Fuck him. That's basically how he played. So he's not really structured either. So he fits on that roster. Fnatic, to me, is a team. They just can change up tempo and pace better than most.
Okay, so I have to change like that. I don't think that Fnatic is strategically a bad team. Total opposite. But I think that also with the CNET points, because we're making it about Fnatic actually, but to just add it up in that, I think that was the way Ascend played, and therefore he played like that. The structure is different on Na'Vi. 100%. There's going to be 10 times more strategy behind it than that. But you know what? The good part is we can ask all those things and opinions and all that in just a little bit.